Evening, guys. It's just me tonight. Alice has been called away, so she won't be joining us. But it's the first live call or the first group call of the new block of Shape Up. So we've got another 8 weeks, and this week it seems like things have been going well. So we've seen consistency return, even with some disruption. You guys have been finding your routines again and getting back into things, which is good. Um, some adjustments being made, which is absolutely fine. Remember, we always say that it's having those non-negotiables and always something instead of all or nothing. So that's the key thing there. There's loads and loads of things that are happening that are really positive. You're staying engaged and trying to get back into the routine, even when things aren't going exactly to plan. Because let's face it, life never goes to plan. There's always things that are thrown in there, some spanners thrown in the works. I apologize for the hoarseness and the gruffness of my voice. I am in the middle of, I'm just getting over a cold. It's just sitting on my chest. So if I lose my voice halfway through, I apologize. So just remember, what we're looking for is consistency. Remember, consistency isn't being perfect. It's not hitting all your goals. It's not hitting everything perfectly every single day. It's doing what you can, working towards your goals. I think I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm in a fat loss phase, and I'm currently tracking all the numbers, and I'm not hitting every single one of them every single day. What I'm looking at is what it looks like over the week. So I'm tracking my calories, my protein, my steps, just keeping an eye on things, and I'm trying to make sure that over the week I hit an average of the numbers. So my average calories are in line with what my goal is. My average protein is in line with what the goal is. The same with the steps and the workouts. And if you can keep doing that, if you keep an eye on things, some days you're going to hit or exceed the numbers. Some days you might miss out. That's absolutely fine. It's what you do in the long term that really matters, and that makes the difference. If you're tired, or if you're struggling with pain, or if you're short on time, it's doing what you can. I had a client today who, one of the things that they pulled up or picked up on is that one of the sessions they did earlier on in the week, they noticed that they were doing some bench press, and the weight that they did last week, they hit 7 reps. This week, they only hit 5. But I said, you still lifted the same weight. You still showed up and you did it. You worked to the same level of effort. Therefore, you are still going to see progress. So it doesn't have to be perfect every week. Those numbers are not going to go in a straight line. There will be bumps. There will be plateaus. There will be dips every now and then. It's what happens. Zoom out. If you ever have one of those weeks, remember to zoom out. We've said it before. Look back at where you came from, and then compare to where you are now. Okay, so it's absolutely, we're not expecting perfection, and it's the same with nutrition, steps, and your training. If you miss workouts or a workout, what I don't want you to kind of think that you've got to do is try and catch it up, or if, let's say, at the start of the week is busy and you miss a workout, and you then try and cram them all in towards the end of the week, that isn't always the best thing. Sometimes if you try and cram things together, it can mean that you are then going to underperform later on, or you'll feel the consequences afterwards. Yes, look at the week ahead and try and plan things around what you're doing. Sometimes you might need to front load the week, but it doesn't mean that you need to do all 3 workouts one day after the other and then have 4 days rest. It might be that you do 2 workouts together and then you do one later on in the week, or if time doesn't allow, miss it. It's fine. It's what you do in the long term. So look at your week ahead, look at how you're feeling at the moment. You could be like me and suffering with a bit of a cold. If you are not feeling well, it's not the wisest decision to kind of push through and make yourself do it if you're really not feeling well. Rest and recuperation is important. And that brings me on to the next one about sleep and steps. And That's one of the things that I think has been a big win this week. So one of the most consistent behaviors across all of the check-in forms is that sleep's been better and that steps have been better. Those two things are quite often things that aren't shouted about enough. Um, when it comes to sort of fitness, health, fat loss, if that's your goal, sleep and steps are two things that are going to have really big impacts. If you're struggling to stick with your calories, or if you're struggling with your energy levels, sleep is the first thing that I would recommend you look at and try and work on. Because if you're not getting enough good quality sleep, you're going to feel tired. When you feel tired, your appetite goes up, decision making becomes harder, and you're more likely to snack. Your workouts are going to suffer, your steps are going to drop. So sleep is one of those things, and actually, it's been really, really good to see that sleep's been something that has gone well this week. Okay, um, excuse me. Nutrition wise, um, again, one of the things that has come through in that some of you have hit nutrition goals on some days, but not all. And that's fine. Remember, it's what you do across the week. So I'll go back to sort of me talking about my tracking sheet. And in fact, what I will do, I'm going to, don't always share, screen share on this, but I'm actually going to screen share today. So I'm going to show you my tracking sheet. This is like a proper full of numbers. And this is me tracking everything. And you can see here across. So I started the 12th, so just over 2.5 weeks ago. And I'm tracking everything. You can see I've tracked my weight's come down, and I'll talk about that in a second. I've tracked where I've done my workouts, where I've done my cardio, my daily steps, and you can see some days, I've hit over 11,000, other days 4,000. I wasn't feeling very well last Saturday, and I only did 4,000 steps. I am aiming for 7,500 steps daily, and you can see that this week I've done 9.5, 6.2, 7.8. Today, if I look at my watch so far, I have done 7,000 steps. So I'll be marching on the spot to get the extra 500 in. I'm joking. I'll probably do those anyway. But you can see also calories. So some days slightly higher than others, some days lower. I've got Sunday, I didn't eat very much, but then the last couple of days I've had around 1,800, which is what I'm aiming for. I've had 1,800 today. You can see my protein, again, up and down. There are ups and downs, right? But what I'm looking at is my averages. So you can see that my average steps last week I didn't quite hit because of that Saturday, but I'm averaging around sort of 8,000 here. Average protein, I'm aiming for 190, so I'm there or thereabouts. And my average calories, fairly consistent. So it's what you do on average. I track everything because I'm very data driven and numbers driven. Um, but it helps me keep an eye on things, and it helps me see where things might be suffering. And then just on the weight, this is something that is really, really key to understanding. Now, it is frustrating, and I get that. So if I look at last week, I had a few days where I stuck at 95, and you can see that it then dropped, and then I had a few days at around 94.5, and then it's dropped again, and I've had a few days at 94.1, and it's dropped again, and I'll probably have a few days at 93.4. That's normal, and even my weight kind of spikes up here. So the first week, big drop down to 94.6 and back up again. It's not my calories. You can see that my calories have always been well below the 2,000 and are absolutely fine. It's not the fact that my steps have done. The only thing I can assume is that, or my kind of thinking around my weight not sort of dropping that part of the week, is that I did 4 workouts on the trot. So I front loaded my workouts because I was busy. And that will cause inflammation. It will cause the muscles to retain water, and it will cause that weight to stay the same. Then when I didn't work out, I get the drop. Okay, so as my inflammation dropped over these 3 days, I get a sort of a ½ kilo drop. Then I do these workouts and then it will drop again. So it's absolutely normal for your weight to kind of plateau. And that's a really kind of important thing to remember. Your weight will go up and down, but I know that because my calories are consistent, my fat loss is going to continue, and I can feel it in myself. I can feel my clothes fitting better. I know my measurements are better as well, which is why I ask you to do the measurements every couple of weeks. And don't just compare one fortnight to the next. Look at it across a month, because your monthly cycle is going to impact on that as well. Okay. So that's really important to kind of do that. Right. Let's get rid of that. All right. So I just thought that'd be interesting for you guys to see that, what I'm sort of doing at the moment in terms of tracking calories and keeping everything going. This is why we ask you to track. It's really useful to get all the data so you can see where you might be, where there might be gaps, where there might be things that you can pick up on. Okay. And especially around the nutrition, it's the average across the week that is going to be important. So some days might be lower calories, some days might be higher, some days your protein might be lower or higher. It's what you do on average across the week that is going to make the difference. All right. So that's the key thing there. All right. We had one really good question, and this is something that I have had asked when I've been in the gym as well a couple of times. And this one's about gut health. Okay, so the question, if I remember correctly, was around products like kefir, or some of these gut health yogurts or gut health sort of supplements that you can take, and whether they are worth taking. Okay, short answer, no. Okay. So short answer, are they worth taking? No. Are they going to do you any particular harm? Absolutely not. Well, most of them won't do. But what I want you to kind of think of here is that, so most people, gut health is, your gut microbiome. Well, let's even take it back. So when we talk about digestion, we're talking about a digestive system. Our body actually only does a small amount of the digestion. So the food that you eat, we get our carbohydrates, they start getting broken down in our mouth. So our saliva produces an enzyme called amylase, which breaks down starch. And you can actually see that working. If you take a piece of bread, keep it in your mouth, keep chewing it for a good couple of minutes, you'll actually start to taste the bread getting sweet. And that's because the amylase in our saliva is breaking the starch down into glucose molecules. So we taste that sweetness. We then get an enzyme in our stomach called protease, which breaks down protein. So we start to get protein broken down in there, and that's broken down into the amino acids. And then we have our bile duct, which is sort of just above the liver, that helps break down the fats and starts to digest those. But that's only one part of it. Most of the digestion is done in our small intestine, and it's not done by the body. It's actually done by our gut bacteria. And in fact, the number of cells, the bacterial cells that we've got in our gut, outnumbers the total number of cells that we have in our body. And it substantially outnumbers. Okay, so we've got this gut bacteria. So everybody's got a gut microbiome in our digestive system. So that gut microbiome is constantly changing as well. And the things that can affect it are the sort of foods that you're eating, the quantities of the different types of food you're eating. And that's why when you go abroad, you can have the upset stomach. It's not necessarily the water or anything like that. It's the fact that when you go on holiday, you will eat slightly different things. You will eat the food you eat might be higher in fats. You might eat more salad, depending on where you go. You might consume more alcohol, and all of that is going to impact on our gut microbiome. And when that changes, that can have an effect on, our stomach health and how we kind of perhaps go to the toilet. So you might notice a change in the consistency of your stools, and that's completely normal. And every time you change your diet, that will happen. So what you might find when you start eating more clean, I don't like that word, but eating more whole food, your gut microbiome has got to break down different foods, and it's going to change, it's going to be different. And that's why some people, especially when they increase things like fiber intake or they increase their protein intake, might experience things like bloating. Excuse me. It's not that the food's doing you any harm, it's the fact that your gut microbiome is having to adapt to that, and it can take a few days. And this is why, again, I talk about consistency. If your diet is really consistent, then your gut microbiome is consistent. And again, if you've eaten really well and you've had a lot of whole food for a good period of time, and then you have a takeaway and it makes you feel bloated, that's why. All right. So that is our gut microbiome. Most people do not have dysfunctional gut microbiomes. You might have things, you might suffer with things like inflammatory bowel syndrome or irritable bowel syndrome or irritable bowel disease. That's slightly different. That is the actual gut lining reacting to your food. That's not necessarily the gut microbiome. So, most people absolutely fine. And because of that, we don't need these things like kombucha, kefir, stuff like that to try and fix it, right? They do not fix your gut microbiome, but they can sometimes help support it. So if you do feel bloated, sometimes something like kombucha or kefir might help settle the gut microbiota and help settle it. But again, it's not a quick fix. It's not something that you drink and there we go, that's done. It's something that can take a few days, but it's there to support it. It does not undo a bad diet. So if your diet is not great, those things are not going to fix it. It's like taking a sticking plaster and putting it over a massive hole in a dam. It's going to do naff all. So one of the things that we need to focus on is our diet quality. And key things there's a few really simple key things. Regular meals at regular times. Okay. If you find that you are skipping meals and then you're overeating later on in the day, if you're suddenly putting loads of food into your digestive system, that is going to overwhelm the gut microbiome. And again, you're going to get fermentation. So food sits in there for a while, it'll ferment, it'll produce gas, you'll feel bloated. Okay. If we split the meals across 3 to 4 meals across the day, it means that that food isn't going to be sitting in there, huge amounts of food sitting in there for long periods of time. It allows the bacteria to do their job of digesting it and breaking it down. The next thing is going to be fiber. The vast majority of people in this country do not eat enough fiber. The recommended amount is somewhere between 25 to 35 grams. The average person in the UK is eating 15 grams or less. So increasing our fiber intake, excuse me, but that isn't just by taking fiber supplements. We want a variety of fiber. You can take a fiber drink that will stick 10, 15 grams of fiber in one go, but that's one type of fiber. And what we want is a variety. So we want to get our fiber from things like fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and then things like our beans and lentils and legumes. Okay. So getting our fruit and our vegetables in and a wide variety of different types of fruit and veg, grains, that's going to give us the different types of fiber that is going to help support our gut health. Fiber is key for that. It really does help support it. It acts as a pre and probiotic that helps support the gut microbiome. We can also have some simple probiotic foods. So things like Greek yogurt, and particularly live yogurt that has the live bacteria in there. Because remember, yogurt is actually produced by kind of fermentation of milk. So if we have a live yogurt or even Greek yogurt, that's going to be a probiotic that helps promote good gut health. And that's exactly what kefir is. It's a live yogurt, and kombucha is the same. Some other fermented foods as well. So things like sauerkraut, pickled cabbage. Okay. And then to a lesser degree, even things like pickled gherkins and beetroots, those fermented foods, if they're done traditionally, they will help support. They are probiotic foods that will help support the bacteria in our gut. So definitely, if you want to, include them if you like them. All right. But are they essential? No. If you eat plenty of fiber and if you're eating regular meals and you drink plenty of fluids and you're well hydrated, that is usually enough to have a good, healthy gut microbiome. You can supplement with adding things like the kefir, but it's not essential. You know, and if you did, the other thing is it's not cheap either. All of these gut sort of supplements and things that you can take, they're not always that cheap. They're over marketed, overpriced, and they are basically people are trying to sell you a problem that you probably don't have. But they'll sell it in such a way that you might think, oh yeah, you know, they might things like, oh, are you bloated? Well, there's so many different reasons for you being bloated that it's not just your gut health. It could be time of the month. It could be the fact that you've had more carbohydrates. It could be the fact that you've just eaten a really big meal. All of these things will kind of impact on how you feel within your gut. It doesn't mean that you've got a dysfunctional gut or that you need these supplements. Okay. So these supplements, they are exactly that. They are supplemental. They are add-ons. They are not essentials, and they're definitely not solutions to fix problems. If you do feel that you've got a dysregulated gut or you're suffering with, you know, upset stomachs, look at the basics first. Regular meals, fiber. The other thing on fiber as well, don't just go from 0 to 100. That's going to impact on it. So gradually increase your fiber, hydration, sleep, movement. So moving, like going for a walk after lunch, can help with digestion. All of these things are going to do far more than spending money on a supplement. Okay, so food quality, fiber diversity, exercise, consistency. That's the key thing. And it's the same message all the time. All right, so that's coming up to the end of the call. Just a couple of kind of reminders. Remember, this is the first week. We're trying to find that routine again. And for some of you, it's finding a new routine. If you're returning into the gym after a bit of a break, for others, it's sort of maintaining that routine. For some, because the goals have slightly changed from maybe fat loss to muscles and strength building, then we're looking at changing that routine as well. So pushing a little bit harder in the gym and switching from being in a calorie deficit to actually finding where your maintenance is. So those are things that keep going on. As ever, whatever you're doing, track what you're doing, track your progress. Data is knowledge. The more you know that you're doing, the more you can look at it, the more you can identify things that might need changing. So this is why we ask you to track your calories, and what I can see when I look at the dashboard, at your dashboards. This is why I ask you to track your steps. Keep an eye on your steps, log them, see what you're doing. If they're dropping, you know, you don't necessarily have to hit 10,000 a day, and you don't have to compensate if you have a low day. You don't need to try and smash out loads. Just try and aim for that kind of consistency across the week. And yeah, track what you're doing. And then that helps us help you identify areas where you might need to kind of just tweak things. Okay, so focus on your daily routines. That never changes. Set yourself some key non-negotiables across the week. That never changes. And have a look at your week ahead. Look and see where the barriers are. Where's your friction? Plan your week. So if you've got a busy end to the week, maybe look at getting more activity earlier on in the week. If you know that you're going to be busy throughout the day, make sure you've got your meals planned and make them simple. Maybe prep or batch cook. That's something I've done this week. Excuse me. So I spent 2 hours on Monday afternoon. I prepped my breakfast and my lunches for the week. So overnight oats for breakfast. I did a nice homemade soup and some chicken wraps for lunches. And then I have batch cooked my evening meals. So one day I did a pasta dish, made enough for another couple of meals. And then I've had some quesadillas, chicken quesadillas, and I've got enough for tomorrow night as well. So yeah, plan ahead, prep where you can, batch cook if you need to, see where you're going to put your workouts in, and then set your non-negotiables for the week. Keep checking in, keep doing your daily reflections. Okay, make sure that you are reflecting on your day. It really does help. It helps you see where the wins are, even if you think you've not kind of had a great day. Always look for the positives. And hopefully we will have Alice join us and my voice coming back again next week. I'll do check-ins as usual on Monday, guys. I will speak to you soon. If you ever need anything, just reach out, ask for a call. We can jump on a call to check on things if you need any help. But until then, I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.